Hollywood, California, February 12, 1977. It is past midnight on a quiet residential street in a West Hollywood, the kind of street where the houses are expensive, the hedges are manicured, and the neighbors don't ask too many questions. A woman is walking alone. She is 27 years old, tall, blonde, beautiful in the way that turns heads in any room. She has spent the last several years working her way through some of the most powerful circles in the world, the kind of parties where the guest list reads like the cover of a magazine. She knows things about very famous people, important people, and she has written all of it down. Tonight, she is carrying that diary in her purse. She will never make it home. When her body is discovered, she has been stabbed more than 20 times and bludgeoned about the head. The broken blade of a knife is still embedded in her chest. Her purse is gone. The diary is gone. And whoever did this has never been found. Her name was Christa Helm, and this is one of Hollywood's most dangerous secrets. She was born Sandra Lynn Wohlfeil in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in November of 1949. From the very beginning, people noticed her. She was charismatic, restless, and burning with ambition, in a way that small-town life couldn't contain. Friends remembered a girl who didn't just want to be famous, she needed it. It wasn't vanity, it was something deeper, a hunger. She married young, had a daughter she named Nicole, and then made a decision that would define the rest of her life. She left. She headed to New York City, changed her name to Christa Helm, and stepped into a world that was faster, brighter, and far more dangerous than anything Milwaukee had prepared her for. New York in the early 1970s was electric. The city was broke, gritty, and absolutely alive. Studio 54 was still a few years away, but the parties that would eventually become Studio 54 were already happening. In penthouses, in lofts, behind closed doors. Christa found her way into those rooms. She landed a modeling job, she met the right people, and she quickly developed a reputation as someone who knew everyone, charmed everyone, and remembered everything. In 1974, she landed a lead role in a low-budget film called Let's Go for Broke, an action film that was meant to be her breakthrough. It wasn't. The film disappeared from theaters within days of opening, but by then, Christa Helm had already moved on to something bigger than the movies. She had discovered that the real power in Hollywood wasn't on screen. It was in the bedroom. Christa Helm moved in rarefied circles. The names linked to her in the press during those years read like a who's who of 1970s celebrity culture: Warren Beatty, Mick Jagger, Jack Nicholson, Joe Namath. She was reportedly flown overseas by the Shah of Iran. Rumors swirled, never fully confirmed, that the U.S. government had approached her to gather intelligence during those visits, using her access to get information that official channels couldn't reach. Whether that was true or not, one thing was documented. Christa Helm kept a diary, not a private journal tucked under a mattress, a detailed, meticulous record of her encounters with the rich and famous, names, dates, and a rating system, a frank, unflinching assessment of the men she had been with. She also made recordings, secret audio tapes of her intimate encounters with celebrities, married men, powerful men, men with enormous reputations, and even more to lose. And here is where the story turns dangerous. Christa didn't keep any of this secret. She talked about the diary openly. She told friends about the tapes. She let people know that she had this material and she had plans for it. There was talk of a tell-all book, something that would have been the first of its kind in Hollywood. An account that, if published, would have detonated careers and marriages and reputations across the entertainment industry. One of her closest friends warned her directly, "You are playing with fire. These are powerful people. You could ruin lives." Christa reportedly smiled and kept writing. A week before she was murdered, she sent a postcard to a friend. It read, "I may be in over my head." On the night of February 12, 1977, Christa Helm attended a gathering at a home in West Hollywood. She was seen by witnesses carrying a handbag that evening, a distinctive bag with a Tommy Boy logo. Inside, those who knew her believed, was the diary. At some point during or after the evening, she stepped outside onto the quiet residential street. What happened next is reconstructed only from what investigators found afterward. She was attacked with extraordinary ferocity, stabbed more than 20 times, bludgeoned. The assault was so sustained and so brutal that forensic investigators noted it went well beyond what was necessary to kill someone. This was personal. This was rage, or desperation, or both. When her body was discovered, there were signs she had fought back hard. She had not gone quietly. Her purse was gone. Her diary was gone. And the audio tapes, which investigators later learned had been stored separately. Those had vanished too. The murder received almost no press coverage. For a woman who had been photographed at the same parties as Mick Jagger and Warren Beatty, whose name had appeared in gossip columns for years, her death barely registered in the national media. One writer noted years later that the silence itself was suspicious, that perhaps who she knew and what she knew was exactly why the story was so quickly and thoroughly buried. The original investigation moved slowly. Police interviewed scores of people. They searched for the diary. They found nothing. There were suspects. There were rumors. There was a man named Rudy Mazzella who reportedly told associates that he had killed Christa Helm. He was questioned. He denied it. And the person he had allegedly confessed to later died, taking that account with them. Mazzella himself is also now deceased. There was Tony Sirico, a Brooklyn tough guy who would later become famous as Paulie Walnuts on The Sopranos. In 1977, Sirico moved in some of the same circles Christa had. After her death, he reportedly visited her apartment and left with several of her belongings, including furs and, investigators believe, some of her recordings. When questioned decades later during a cold case review, his attorney shut the interview down before it could go anywhere. Sirico denied ever being at the apartment. The case went cold. It stayed cold for nearly 30 years. Then, in the mid-2000s, Christa's daughter Nicole, who had been just 9 years old when her mother was murdered, pushed for the case to be reopened. She had spent her entire life without answers. She deserved them. A cold case team was assigned, and what they found shifted the investigation in an unexpected direction. Forensic technology that hadn't existed in 1977 was brought to bear on physical evidence that had been preserved for 3 decades, specifically tissue found beneath one of Christa's fingernails, evidence that she had scratched her attacker during the struggle. The DNA analysis came back. The killer was a woman. The cold case investigators turned their attention to the final weeks of Christa's life, specifically a recording session she had arranged in early 1977. Christa had been working on a disco album produced by Frankie Crocker, a well-known and charismatic disc jockey with deep connections in the music industry. She had also become romantically involved with Crocker, and she was not subtle about it. The recording session brought together a group of musicians and backup singers, including a woman named Debbie Danilo, who had become one of Christa's close friends. Investigators came to believe the session had fractured along lines of jealousy and betrayal. Christa had reportedly become involved with another musician at the session, one who was in a relationship with Danilo. When Danilo discovered what had happened, the fallout was severe. But there was another woman in Christa's life whose name kept surfacing, Patty Collins. A woman who had been romantically involved with Christa and who, investigators believe, had become aware of the full scope of Christa's other relationships. When cold case detectives began requesting DNA swabs from women connected to the case, they found Patty Collins, and then they couldn't find her anymore. Frankie Crocker, who might have provided critical answers, died before investigators could fully question him. The DNA from beneath Christa's fingernail has never been matched to a confirmed suspect. Christa Helm's murder remains officially unsolved. Her diary has never been found. The audio tapes have never surfaced. Whatever names were written in those pages, whatever secrets she had collected over years of navigating the most powerful rooms in America, they disappeared with her purse on a dark West Hollywood street in 1977. A researcher named Jamie Duvall has spent over a decade investigating the case independently. He has conducted more than 100 interviews, traveled across 4 states, and uncovered information that has never been made public. He is working on a book. The case files at the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department remain largely sealed. There is one more detail worth sitting with. On the same night Christa Helm was murdered, another woman named Sheila Green was stabbed to death approximately 5 miles away on Mulholland Drive. The 2 women had no known connection to each other, but in 1977, investigators believed both murders had been committed by the same person. 2 women, 1 night, 1 killer possibly, and no answers for either of them. Nearly 50 years later, whoever walked away from that street in West Hollywood, whoever took the diary, whoever made sure those tapes never surfaced, is still out there. Or they took their secret with them to the grave. Either way, Christa Helm never got justice, and the most dangerous book never written is still missing.